Outdoor Genetics is proudly sponsored by Chum Bums. Chum Bums is an outdoor adventure community that is owned and operated by military vets, and they promote conservative American values. You see, there's no paid advertisements on this social media platform, and they never own or sell your data. And of course, you can create your own private groups from within this secured platform as well. Chum Bums is an outdoor adventure community where you can shop discounted products in the members-only outlet store, and you can book an adventure with one of their many adventure partners from within this app. We would like to welcome you to join us as this community on this app continues to grow, and it's a community where your privacy and the American way of life truly matters. Guys, make sure to check out Chum Bums. That's CHUMBUMZ. All right, we're recording in 5, 4, 3, 2. Hey guys, welcome to the Outdoor Genetics Podcast. Really excited today because we have a special guest with us. We have Max. Max, how are you doing, man?
I'm good, mate. How are you doing?
Man, I am doing fantastic. Why don't you tell everybody who you are, what you do, who you're with? I'm really looking forward to this, so get through it really quick.
So as I said before, my name's Max. Thanks, John, for having me on here. So I'm one of the co-owners of True Blue Broadheads, a company based out of Australia. We've been making broadheads for 3 or 4 years now, and wanted to jump on here and have a chat with John and pretty much talk about the cultural and hunting differences, I guess, between Australia and the United States, and just have a bit of a yarn and catch up. Also, actually, John, before we get into it, anyone who's listening to the podcast today, we have a discount code. So if you use the code Outdoor Genetics, you'll automatically get a discount for listening to the podcast. So just go onto our website, www.truebluebroadheads.com, and anything on the website you'll have a discount code now for. So.
That is awesome, and that is all. When you told me that, we were talking before we started recording, you told me that, it gave me goosebumps. I just thought that was really cool that y'all went out of y'all's way to do that, just for setting up the podcast. So on our end, thank y'all very much for doing that.
No problem at all, John.
But so real quick, granted, being the co-owner, one of the co-owners of True Blue Broadheads, I could sit here and talk to you about business all day long. And as that does sound like fun to me, but there are other questions and things that I want to talk about when it comes to especially hunting, because y'all have got some wildlife over there that doesn't even, what we have over here doesn't even come close to comparing to what y'all have over there. And I'm eager to talk about it. And so it's like, I've been, for years, it's always kind of been a dream to be able to visit over there and just to see, right? But then I get to looking at things like, I'm just going to say, like the snake population. Y'all have got a whole bunch of like the world's most deadliest snakes in y'all's population, or in y'all's area. Y'all have, 21 of the world's most deadliest snakes in Australia?
Yeah.
They're all there?
Yeah, something like that. Yeah, that's right.
So when you're going hunting, fishing, no matter what you're doing, I guess you're constantly got to keep your head on a swivel.
I guess growing up in Australia, it becomes a bit of a normal thing. We've always got snakes around, and if you leave them alone, they leave you alone, kind of thing.
Uh-huh.
I always had this conversation. I got a couple of American friends, and it blows my mind. Like, you guys think how dangerous and deadly it is here, but I can't even imagine what it would be like to go take your trash out and a bear be eating out of it. That just blows my mind.
Well, and don't get me wrong, like here in Oklahoma, where I'm actually from, we don't have bears directly around us. Now, if I travel just a few hours over, we've got them. And then, of course, we start moving up into the northern states. They're all over the place, and they are beautiful. But, I was listening to, I believe it was Joe Rogan, and they were talking about, things that you get comfortable with. There's certain dangers that you get comfortable with. And it's like you said, growing up over there, you're just kind of used to it, But I'm looking at it like over here, like here where I live, I think we've only got it's either 6 or 7 venomous snakes that reside here in my state, and
Right.
that's nothing. I think of 21 of the world's most deadliest snakes, and I'm like, well, like, don't get me wrong, I snake hunt. We go out and catch the rattlesnakes here, and that's fun and all, but I think of 21 different species. I'm like, man, that would almost have me on edge.
Yeah, we do come across them. Like, I've been fishing and hunting and seen. I guess the most common ones that we get where I live is the brown snake. We also get taipans, and we also get the red-bellied black snake. So the brown snake is probably the most, I guess, deadly out of those three. And it's not very fortunate because the color of them, they blend in quite well. Whereas the red belly, as the name suggests, has a black back but a red belly, so they stand out quite well. The brown snakes, generally, you leave them alone, they leave you alone. We've been out in the bush hunting before and nearly stepped on a couple. It was only a couple of months ago, my business partner Phil and I were hunting, and he just shot this pig, and he's come down the hill, and I'm halfway between him and wherever his pig is, and he's gone, hey, you can't come any more forward, there's a brown snake between the two of us, there's a snake of some sort between the two of us. So I guess the only danger we face, Australia is quite a big country with quite a small population, so wherever we go hunting, we might be quite a while away from the nearest town or hospital and stuff, so if a brown snake bites you, yeah, you're in trouble. You've got to quickly stop that venom from flowing. I'm not exactly sure how the venom works. I don't know if it coagulates the blood or if it attacks your central nervous system, but pretty much you just got to try and stop that venom from flowing, not freak out, don't go for a run. Yeah, but whereas the red-bellied black snake and stuff, I think from what I understand, it's the deadliness of it all is based upon if you're allergic to it. Now, I could be wrong. We might have to fact check this, but I think the venom only kills you if you're allergic to it. Whereas, it's funny, the brown snake, a mature brown snake, like a full-bodied brown snake, is less deadly than a baby brown snake. So a baby or a juvenile brown snake doesn't know how to control its venom. Snakes, the snakes here, I guess, from what I understand, and as I said, we might need to fact check some of this stuff, but is that the baby ones, when they hit you, they inject everything they got, whereas the adult snakes know how to control their venom output. But regardless, you're going to be crook, you're going to be sick.
Right.
So a lot of us hunt in. We'll hunt in like high calved boots, so shoes that come up quite high on our legs. We'll have gaiters on, or have jeans underneath our hunting gear. Yeah, we gear up for it, but no,
for the just in case.
That's right. Yeah, that's it.
Man, it's like around here, our biggest, like around my immediate area, we have like the copperhead, right? That's going to be like the most common one that we see. And then, of course, we've got a couple of different, we've got 3 different types of rattlesnakes. But generally speaking, if you have on a pretty decent pair of boots, as long as they, strike you below your boot, you're going to be fine. Now, it's obviously when they strike a little higher, but it's like, the copperhead down here, man, a big copperhead's 1.5 foot, 2 foot long. That's a big one. And so it's like, we're not super worried, or me, I should say, I'm not super worried about it. Around our area, antivenom is pretty regularly accessible just because of the sheer number of incidents that happen with these snakes here. And I'm assuming with so many different types of venomous snakes over there, I mean, there's got to be casualties happening, man, I would almost think often.
Yeah, I guess as I said before, Australia is quite a large country. I think we're definitely going to need to get some fact checks, but we're huge. We're bigger than as big as or bigger than the United States. We're definitely huge. Like we're bigger than most parts of Europe. But then we've got a population of only 27 million, I think it is, people. So there's a vast amount of land where these snakes live, and most of our population, I would say 80% of it or something crazy like that, lives on the east coast, and lives around the coastal parts of Australia. So a lot of these snakes are in the bush. They're out in the countryside. So I guess our interactions with the snakes, I guess, is far and few between. You kind of have to go into their environment. And as I said before, like in New South Wales where I live, which is kind of like on the east coast, about midway down on Australia, we kind of don't, we're the only, I guess the most poisonous ones we have are, your brown snakes, your red belly blacks. There are a lot more poisonous snakes, I guess, in our more tropical climates up north as well. We get a lot of snakes up there.
Sure.
But yeah, our daily interactions with them is probably minimal.
Wow.
The same thing with like our sharks. Like everyone thinks that because we've got great whites and tiger sharks and a whole bunch of sharks and the local media here likes to, when there's a shark attack, make it like the most devastating thing in the world. But you're actually, from what I understand, you're actually more likely to be killed by a falling vending machine or a coconut falling out of a tree than you are to be killed by a shark in Australia.
Really?
So, but at the same time, it's innately Australian of me to enjoy taking advantage of Americans that think this is the deadliest place in the world. I like our reputation.
Right.
Crocodile Dundee has really set the undertone of what we do and what we're going to do with here.
Well, I mean, okay, so I didn't even think about the idea of sharks, but y'all have also got saltwater crocodiles and freshwater crocodiles. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct. Yeah.
So I mean, man, y'all, especially from somebody like me who I'm landlocked all the way around me. I've got states all the way around me. I don't have any coastal borders or anything like that. We've got lakes and rivers that run around here, but man, we ain't got nothing like that. I'm just like, man, but I did look up real quick because I was curious about the size of, Australia compared to the US. And yeah, I mean, y'all cover up 95-96% of the U.S. I mean, I think honestly it could probably be stretched to just be about even. I didn't realize how big Australia really was, because you look at a map, it just looks like a little spot over here off to the side, But that is a big. It's a lot bigger than I had originally anticipated. But yeah, I mean, y'all have got this. I look at it and I say it's crazy, but it goes back to like what we said before. Growing up with certain dangers, it's no big deal. Like
yeah.
growing up in the city, we had friends who they all played basketball and we'd play hockey and soccer and stuff like that. We'd play in the cul-de-sac and in the road, and we knew that when a car was coming, just get off the road. And our parents were cool with it. Like, they didn't mind it at all. But I look at, and I have country friends that grew up out in the country. Like, I didn't move out to the country until I was like, I don't know, I guess I was 12 or 13. So I mean, I really grew up in the big cities. And my parents were cool with us playing in the road. They knew we were gonna behave and do what we should do. It was dangerous, but it was an acceptable danger. And now that we live out in the country, we've got country friends. And I mean, me being a 30-year-old guy now, I've got friends that when they go to the city and stuff, they're not about to let their kids play out in the road because it's dangerous, but they'll let their kid go noodling with me and a couple of other buddies and have a good time.
Yeah, it's so true. It's that acceptable danger. It's what you're comfortable with, what you're used to having around you. Yeah, it is. And y'all have another animal that, at least over here,
gets a lot of attention, and it seems like it comes in spurts. But that's the cassowary.
Oh yeah, yep.
That's now, if I'm not mistaken, that's labeled as the world's most dangerous bird.
Yeah, yep, that's correct.
And it's flightless. It belongs to I think they call it the rat-tites, which is the family of flightless birds. Mm-hmm. And the females get up to like 6 feet, 6 inches tall, 130 pounds. That's a monster.
It's a big chicken.
It's a big chicken.
Yeah. They're I think they're up north. They're up in the northern parts of Australia. I actually believe that they're endangered.
Really?
Yeah. But they're a beautiful bird. We've got a lot of beautiful birds here. A lot of tropical birds as well. We get lots of emus as well. Mm-hmm. That's probably what I see more around here. They're a big flightless chicken. They look a bit deranged, like they need to go to the hairdresser, or they haven't had sleep in a week. Their hair's all over their face and look a bit crazy. But for most people, a lot of Australians who live along the eastern coast of Australia, they don't really have many run-ins with big birds, with big wildlife. But you don't have to travel too far. As you said before, we're talking about the saltwater and freshwater crocodiles and stuff. Like for me, in New South Wales, we can go swimming in any of our lakes, any of our rivers. We can go to the beach and jump in the water, and we'll be, unless there's a falling coconut or vending machine, we should be right. But whereas our northern brothers and sisters up in Queensland and the Northern Territory, they don't have that luxury. It's far more dangerous, I guess, as you go up further north. They've got more exotic spiders, snakes, the crocodiles, the sharks. And it's more so, it's not what you can see that can kill you, it's more what you can't see. So there's like, we've got these little jellyfish that bob around in the ocean and got no brain, no ability to think for themselves. They're not sentient in any way, but they have enough venom in them to, once they touch you, to, I think it's like enough venom to kill like 20 odd people. Like, it's ridiculous. These little jellyfish. So you can't really swim in the ocean in some of the northern parts. Plus you got the crocodiles that are in the water. Plus we've got these, when you're a kid, you go around and you go in the rock pools, like when you're like scrounging around, you're looking for shells and stuff. We've got this thing called a blue ring octopus. It's very beautiful.
I have heard of that. That's one of the deadliest, if not the most deadly, like venomous creatures y'all have there, right? Like in the world. Yeah, and it's just an innocent looking kind of sandy green octopus that's got like these big blue rings all over it. And we get like people come in, like tourists and stuff, and most Australians know what a blue ringed octopus is. So when I've seen photos of people picking them up, and my hair nearly falls out. Oh, I bet.
Like you just think it's so poisonous. Like if you get hit by that thing, you have very little chance of survival. Like you are. Yeah, I guess the good thing is, like, if you get hit by one, you're on the east coast, so, well, hopefully somewhere near a hospital. So right. So is it the actual? Is it their bite that does it, or is it? I mean, what is it about them? Do you know? I think it's a bite, from what I understand.
Oh man. Okay, so I grew up down in Texas. So I grew up right around the coast. I mean, we were constantly on the ocean when I was a kid. And we had actually one time found a small octopus. It was not no blue ring octopus. I don't even know that we have anything like that over here. But we had picked it up. I mean, little bitty, just about the size of my hand, little bitty thing. Yeah. And I was holding it, and I thought this was just the neatest thing in the world. And of course, I walked up to my mom, showed my dad, my sister, and her boyfriend was there at the time, and I was showing them. And about that time, that thing whelped up and bit me. And of course, I didn't know what was going on. I just felt pain, and I just shook my hand, and it plopped down on the ground. And my sister's boyfriend was looking at me like, "What's the problem?" I was like, "Dude, it bit me." He said, "No, it didn't." I said, "Yes, it did." And he picked it up, and it started crawling up his arm, just kind of meandering up his arm. And it bit him on the forearm, and he started freaking out. I was like, "I told you that thing bit me." But I couldn't imagine, though. I mean, as a kid, I look at it from an aspect of, had I been over there, had that been that blue ring octopus, I wouldn't have known any better. I was just a kid, wouldn't have known anything. Man, that is. Yeah, y'all definitely got some creatures to be reckoned with over there, and that is, y'all got the cuttlefish over there. I believe that's what it's called. Isn't it the cuttlefish that's also venomous or poisonous over there?
I don't know if cuttlefish are. Are you talking about the thing that looks like a squid?
Oh, let me see. Maybe that's not what I'm thinking of. That might be what it is, but that's not what I'm thinking of. But anyways, y'all got a variety of them.
Yeah, I just don't feel like if I get ever killed by an Australian animal, I don't think it will be as masculine as getting eaten by a bear. Like if I go to heaven and say, "Oh look, this little jellyfish the size of my thumb killed me," it's nothing compared to what you guys have. Like, I want to get killed. If I'm going to get killed by a wild animal, I want it to be a brown bear. Like, go to heaven, just say, "Oh look at this massive scratch across my chest." That was what got me in the end. But over here, it's kind of like, yep, I was just looking for shells in a pool of water, and an octopus destroyed me.
Stonefish. I found it right here. Stonefish is what I was thinking of.
Yes.
The stonefish.
That will hurt. Yeah, we got them here. They are ugly. They are so ugly. Hey. They're an ugly looking fish. But yeah, if you step on them, apparently the pain is the equivalent of being shot. I've heard.
Ooh.
Like, people who've stepped on them, because that's what happens. You're out in the river and having a swim, and then you just step on one. And they got a spine on the back of their fin. on their body, and that goes into your foot, and
Oof.
That's very poisonous and very painful apparently.
That over here, the worst thing I got to worry about really in our area, like, we occasionally get an alligator, but that is so rare over in my neck of the woods. Our biggest fear when it comes to anything in the water, man, I guess really is going to be like I said, when we're going noodling, and I guess our fear is like of a big alligator snapping turtle. Just a big old snapping turtle taking off our hand. Is noodling a thing over there? Have you ever heard of that?
Yeah, it's definitely not. I've seen you guys do that. Yeah, it's definitely not a thing here.
I didn't know if it would be, but
That's some country redneck stuff. It's awesome to watch. I love it. I love the accents. I love the anticipation. It's mad. We have got catfish, but nothing like the fishing. Actually, I got a big respect for American fishing. You guys have got some monsters over there. I used to think Australia had some big fish, but yeah, even just the catfish, like, crazy.
I'm telling you, if you're ever over here and you want to go, you just let me know, because I'm telling you, I have been noodling since I was just a child, and even to this day, every time I stick my hand in a hole and I get bit, it's like the very first time. It's an adrenaline rush. I scream like a little girl. It is so much fun. I don't know what about it. Some of them hurt. Like, we have a species that we call the blue cat, and they are mean. They're violent. When they hit you, it feels like you're getting slammed with 2 center blocks on your hand. And it's painful. Like, some of them are, especially when you're talking about getting up to the 40, 50, and 60 pound mark. Y'all go by kilos over there, so that'd be around 25 to 35 kilos over there. That y'all do go by kilos. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah, we got
okay,
our
just making
we
sure I
got,
was
we
right.
got our shit together over here.
Yeah, we're still lacking over here, but I can relate kilo. I know that actually the units that I work with are all my job is done in kilos, so I know a little bit there. So I'm a step ahead rather than most Americans are. So
That's okay. I won't. We won't hold it against you. It's all good. But it is a lot of fun. Like especially like you've got gallons. You use gallons instead of liters as well.
Yep,
I,
yep.
I do enjoy. I've got a mate, Jeremy Davidson. Give him a follow. He's in Kentucky, and we often will get talking about the temperature, or we talk about the type of price of gas, or we'll talk about distance of something, and it's always just get on Google. Let's translate the information we're trying to say to each other. Get on Google and pounds to kilos, miles to kilometers. So. But yeah, no, it's those fish sound insane, and the fact that you guys just get in that dark, murky water and just shove your hand into a hole, it freaks me out.
There is a spook factor to it. Have you ever heard of the TV show called Swamp People?
Yes, I have watched that. Yeah.
Okay, so Ashley Jones, the one they call Ashley Deadeye Jones, she's the tall redhead that her partner is Ronnie on the show. She actually invited my wife and I to go noodling. We're friends with her and her family. She actually invited my wife and I a couple times to go noodling with them over in Mississippi. And the difference between Mississippi and Oklahoma is here in Oklahoma, you're probably not going to run into any alligators. Over there, you are 100% dang near guaranteed you're going to run into alligators. And I just thought we were crazy. I mean, we dive off into like cesspool looking things trying to pull fish out of these holes. They're diving into gator fested waters and walking around, wading around, swimming around, pulling fish out of holes. And like literally the very next day, me and my wife, we were just driving around, sightseeing, having a good time, just looking. And I said, wait a minute, we were noodling out there yesterday. And then I was like, wait a minute. And there, out there in the freaking water, right there where we were noodling, was around what I was thinking, like 8 to 9 foot gator. I took a picture of it and I took it back to Ashley, and she's like, oh no, that's one of our resident gators. He hangs out there all the time. Yeah, he's around 10 to 12 foot. And I said, what? I was in that water. Like, that thing could have killed me.
Are they aggressive? Like, I've seen videos of them. Are they a violent animal?
I think it's kind of more or less you got better odds of being in a car accident than you do getting taken down by one of these gators. Now, not to say you should taunt them or feed them or anything like that. With any big animal, definitely give it its space. Yeah. But generally, I mean, I was talking to Ashley about that because that was one of my big concerns. She would call me and we were chit-chatting about us coming down, and I told her, I was like, look, that's one of my biggest fears. I was like, it's just me and my wife, and if something happens to me, then it's just my wife, or if something happens to her, it's just me. And I'm so dependent on my wife. I don't know what I would do without her. So I'm like, I really got to make sure she's okay. She was like, man, it happens so rarely. I mean, of course, it's kind of like, I think it's going to be like the equivalent to what you were talking about, the shark attacks. I think you've got better odds of, kind of like you said, having a what'd you say, a coconut fall on, and take you down hitting you on the head. Yeah, than getting attacked. Not to say it doesn't happen, but it's kind of the same thing when it does happen over here. Yeah, it's headline news real quick.
yeah, of course. Well, our saltwater crocodiles aren't probably as forgiving. They are quite dangerous. Like they, and probably the fact that people don't get taken more often is probably because of that education of knowing that they aren't something to be messed with.
Sure.
The people still do get taken. I've just done some conversions. So an average the average male saltwater crocodile at full maturity will be 17 foot roughly.
Good night.
And they can come in at about 1,150 pounds roughly.
That's
quite
a monster.
Yeah, and that's an average. So they do get bigger. They can get bigger, and they have been cited to be bigger. I was up. There's a part of Australia, a northern state, territory called the Northern Territory, and it's. I don't even think they've got 300,000 people living in that state. Like, it's very small in terms of population, but the land is enormous. There's just so much wilderness. It's probably one of the last. I guess I would make it comparable to somewhere like Alaska.
Sure.
There's just so much vast land that hasn't been looked at. Like, you need a helicopter almost to get to it.
Right.
And I was out there hunting. We've got water buffalo. So
yes.
So I was hunting out there for some water buffalo, and as I said, you get comfortable with what you're surrounded by. So the guys up there I was hunting with were like, yeah, just make sure you stay away from the water and just steer clear of anything that just steer clear of the water in front of you, but also make sure you're looking 20-30 yards behind you, because there might be an a crocodile sitting on the bank as well. And a lot of people actually they don't get taken by the water, they actually get taken by the crocodile sitting on the bank behind them in the bush. So I'm seeing, like, I grew up in, I live in the country now, but I grew up in the suburbs of Sydney, and going there and going from a pen pushing job, and then next week I'm sitting on the banks of crocodile infested waters. I just got this distinct image of this. We went up with a few family friends, and one of the kids was there, and he's like probably 12 or 13 years old, something like that, maybe a bit older, and he's walking around with a 300 Wid Mag rifle in front of me, this big thing that looks like it's been pulled out of the Call of Duty series, and I'm just thinking, this is insane. And then I'll never forget it. So we're going past this body of water that would only be maybe 6 yards by, I don't know, like maybe 6 to 10 yards long by 4 or 5 yards wide, and it's just this little pool of water. There was nothing to it, and me thinking there can't be anything possibly in there. And this young fella's in front of me, he's walking past it, he'd only be 3 or 4 yards from it, and all of a sudden this pool of water just erupts, and there's a full, like, probably, I don't know, maybe 10-yard crocodile just sitting in this little pool of water. Like, its body was probably the size of the pool of water, and it just erupts out of it. And my reaction, which as you said before we got on here, I probably can't. It's a family-friendly podcast, so I won't use the language that I use. But I freaked out, and the kid in front of me kind of was like, oh, like he jumped, like it did scare him, but it was kind of like, oh yeah, that happens, and just kept walking, and I'm just sitting there going, holy shit, like this thing could have eaten us. But I guess. We eventually shot 2 water buffalo up there with the bow, and we took one of the buffalo legs and we attached a rope to it, because we've seen this pad print in the dirt, and if I put my hand on it, it was like 2 or 3 times the size of my hand. This crocodile print in the mud. It was huge. It was like the size of a dinner plate, and Richard, the guy I was out there hunting with, he's like, all right, we'll tie this water buffalo leg to the tree, and I'll put a bit of rope on it, and we'll see what happens. And we think that crocodile was definitely up of 20 feet. Like, he was a big crocodile. So the leg was disappeared in the morning. It was not there.
It was just gone.
Yeah, and we're talking, like, let me just do some quick conversions here. We're talking probably, how much would that leg weigh? Maybe 170 pounds, something like that.
Good night. That's a lot of meat right there.
Yeah, and it was gone. It was completely gone. So yeah, I'm not very fond of the animals up in the territory. That's if there's anywhere that you're gonna find our venomous and most dangerous animals, it's probably the northern parts of Australia. Yeah,
Gonna be up there.
yeah. That's why the
Man, I tell
majority of
you,
us live down here.
that is just wild. I could not imagine. I mean, and now I in a jokingly way, trying to make light of the moment. I say a lizard. That's a big lizard, man. Like I could not imagine being out in the woods where I'm hunting or fishing, and having that to contend with, or having that even in the back of my mind. That just seems. Oh, it seems awfully intimidating. Even these gators that we have down here, or I say down here, like over in like when we go to like Mississippi to go noodling over there, man, that is intimidating. But I could not imagine, like you said, sticking your hand down there and it just the print just being bigger than your hand. That's a huge animal. That is massive. Yeah. That is absolutely massive.
And the stories there's a lot of Aboriginal people that live up there that have lived amongst these animals for years.
Sure.
But I remember being told a story about these, and it was by the guy that was up there, and there was two Aboriginal boys, and there were some girls on the other side of this riverbank, two brothers, and the girls were calling the brothers over, and I guess the brothers thought, hey, let's power of women, like they thought, hey, like it's worth crossing this river, and this was a few months before I got up there, and two brothers swam across and only one brother made it.
Oh no.
So yeah, and the territory is full of even the water buffalo that are over there. I'm just going to do another conversion here.
Yeah.
A water buffalo can be excess of 2,200 pounds. They're a
Good
full,
night.
And they got huge. They got they got a meter, so what, 40 inches maybe, or 40 inches plus. They've got these horns. They're essentially wild cattle. So you're contending with the snakes, the spiders, the crocodiles, and then you've got the animal that you're actually pursuing, which is the water buffalo, which are amazing, beautiful, absolutely beautiful animals.
Yes, they are.
They're endangered. A lot of these animals we have here in Australia that have been introduced are endangered. Same with animals in New Zealand. They're endangered. The tahr is endangered where it naturally is in the alpine areas of I'm trying to think of where they're from. It's not coming to me, but but in New Zealand they're in abundance. And same thing here with the Indonesian water buffalo. We've got them in abundance here. The bangtang, which is another Indonesian form of cattle. There are wild cattle here that aren't from Australia, and they're in abundance here, but endangered over there. But we were hunting these buffalo, and I heard a story a few months before I got there, same kind of thing. If the crocodiles, they weren't going to try and scare me out the crocodiles, they were going to scare me about these buffalo. And this guy was hunting them with a bow, and got taken out by one. And I heard of stories of guys getting picked up, horns straight to the groin and thrown in the air. And they're beautiful. They're so curious. They kind of remind me of a dog. They just kind of, I don't know. They just, if they sit, we were driving through the bush and there was some baby ones and we pulled the car over and they just kind of walk towards you. They just want to know what you are.
What you are, what's going on. Just real curious.
Yeah. Beautiful, absolutely beautiful. But the only challenge is if you try to shoot one. They're not I guess, deer or pigs and stuff like that, where they go for a run. Someone gets shot, they're like, all right, that's the one who's going down today. Everyone run, abandoned ship. Whereas the water buffalo, from my experience, when I shot the first one, I shot a cow, and I shot her at 20 yards. I was stuck in the mud at 20 yards in this mud pit in the middle of this open country, and I shot her and I was satisfied. I was like, yep, sweet, I got my first buffalo. We were testing out our first broadhead that we made out. We made the Generation 1 crossbreed broadhead, and yeah, it was like, yeah, sweet, she's down. She went down within 40 yards, and all the buffalo kind of, there was about 20 of them, and they all ran around and they all kind of dispersed. And I thought, oh, okay, that's it. But the beautiful thing, I guess, about buffalo is they're a very family-orientated animal. I don't know if that's the term that I would use, but they don't abandon they're so curious and so switched on that they kind of came back together. And when the big male, who's now hanging up on my front living room wall, when he came in, he wanted to find out who had just killed the female. Like, he was really pissed off, he was really angry, he was snorting and scratching the ground, and he was sniffing her and looking for me, pretty much.
He knew something was wrong.
Yeah, and that's the most, I would have to say, the most amazing experience in terms of hunting, because it was just me. We're 6 hours drive from any form of human civilization. We're out in the middle of nowhere, and it was 25 yards from me, and I'm literally stuck knee deep in this mud. And I can't move, man. I was at full draw. We got the camera. I was at full draw for 3.5 minutes.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, and I draw an 80-pound bow, so I'm just sitting there waiting, and he wanted to kill me. He was coming towards me, and he couldn't quite work me out because I was, as I said, full draw, in full camouflage, and he's coming towards me. He gets to about 20 yards, and this little baby cow, this little calf, kind of like, because calves are children essentially, they just run around playing. Then, you know, the world could be on fire and children will still be running around having a good time,
just totally carefree.
Yeah, and this little calf just like literally ran in front of him, and like it distracted him enough to him to turn his head and put one arm across, because he was straight on front onto me, and then he kind of just looked at that little baby cow and then calf, and put his left leg to the right hand side of his body, which opened up probably a shot window the size of an apple, and I put one into there, and yeah, but just he went down within 40 yards, and it just, I have to say, like, that there was something that I tapped into that day that I've never been able to tap into again, which was like, I could hear, it was like sensory overload. It was like I was on some sort of drug where I could hear and see, and everything was almost in slow motion, where I could, like, breathing, I could feel the temperature of the air going into my lungs, and the every ounce of grass and plant that was moving in the wind, every scent, like everything was just, it was almost like all my brain had realized, hey, like, you're in this situation, whereas if you don't get this shot right, you're gonna die. And that was the thought that went through my head. If I hit this guy wrong, I'm dead. Like, that's it. There's no coming back.
It's either all or nothing at that point.
Yeah, it's either he's gonna die or I'm gonna die, and that was it. And the guy I was with, he said to me, like, he had the rifle but he couldn't move. Like, in the situation I was in, I was perfectly lined up with him, and he goes, it was just you were just on your own. And so, like, I don't think about snakes and stuff like that and crocodiles as a big issue, but when you're hunting a water buffalo and you're in that circumstance where you're 20 yards away, 20 to 25 yards away from a 1-ton water buffalo, there's something there was a moment where I was like, I'm probably not going to go home, and I just felt overwhelmed, you know. Like, a week beforehand, I was sitting writing reports at my desk on a computer, and now I'm standing in front of this animal that just wants to drill me. But yeah, I managed to do what I needed to do. But yeah, that feeling of it's that fight or flight response, you know. And it was the most realistic fight response I've ever had. Like, it was like, you need your body. It's like the brain just said, here's everything. I'm gonna tune up your hearing, smell, sound, everything. Everything's gonna be overloaded, so you can do what you need to do right now. And I would love to get that and put that in a pill and be able to take that again, because that was one hell of a rush. Yeah.
Oh, I could only imagine. I have never been in, I mean, that's life or death. I have never been in a situation like that, but I could only imagine. Like I'm sitting here, like I'm starting to I'm not gonna lie, I've kind of got goosebumps, and I'm kind of like sweating as if I'm in that moment because I'm just like, oh my goodness, that would be so intense. I mean, just so surreal. I could not imagine being in a situation, like that. I mean, if I'm not mistaken, water buffalo, they are considered like the most dangerous bovine on Earth when it comes to human interactions. And
Yeah, right,
I mean
okay.
that is so wild to me. And you did this with a bow.
Yeah.
Wow.
With a prototype broadhead.
But it worked. Obviously, it worked because you said you've got them hanging up right now on your front living room wall.
That's it. That's exactly right.
Oh man. So that was one of y'all's broadheads, correct?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
And now y'all just recently release another one that y'all just came out with, didn't y'all?
Yeah, just yesterday we released the Impulse. It's a short carbon steel 2-blade. So yeah.
About to say, I thought I had seen that, and I couldn't remember if it was yesterday or the day before, but I knew I had seen that y'all released that, and So over there, y'all are hunting. So y'all's big game is going to be I was about to say the Cape buffalo, the water buffalo, and I know y'all have hogs over there. And y'all is the majority of y'all's hunting, is it bow hunting?
I would say the bow hunting community in Australia is actually quite small.
Oh, really?
In comparison, yeah, I would say most people hunt with rifle or dogs. A lot of people use dogs as well.
What are they running with dogs? The pigs?
Yeah, for the pigs. Yeah.
Gotcha.
And a lot of people who hunt with rifle are going for most likely deer or pigs as well, to get rid of pigs, because pigs are a big pest issue over here as well.
Sure.
But it's a luxury item. Like, I'm very grateful that I had the opportunity to hunt water buffalo, because not many people get that opportunity. Like, our big game species are our dangerous game species are our water buffalo. We've got wild cattle, so like your like I guess your average cow, but they call them scrub bull over here, so they're quite light. They're actually, I would say they're just as, if not more dangerous than the water buffalo. And then we've got bangtang, which are another form of cattle. So all three are cattle. All three are cows essentially. So you got your European cow, like your scrub bull. And then you've got your two Indonesian cows, which are your water buffalo and your bangtang. So those are your dangerous game animals. And then we've got 5 or 6 different species, I think it is, of deer here. And then we've got the pigs, the wild European pigs. We hunt a lot of goats. Wild goats are quite a big thing here too. And what else have we got? Camel. I'm probably gonna forget something.
Camel, like big game for hunting.
Yeah. I guess that's a big game animal. Yeah, camel in Central Australia, South Australia. There's camel.
Really, I didn't know that was a thing.
Yeah, they're a massive animal over here that we have.
Wow.
Yeah. Because they used to bring them over here to help get across the Europeans and stuff, and they brought I don't know what nation they are. I don't know what nation the camels came from, but they brought people from those countries where the camels are from to help get across the vast deserts that we have here.
Right.
And I guess when they were here, they decided to let some go, and now we've got hundreds of thousands of these wild camels. Which is we don't hunt in Australia. We don't hunt any of our native species. Everything we hunt is introduced.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
So no. Okay, so what would be native over there?
Kangaroos, emu, wombats, I'm just trying to think. There's so many animals. Like you got like platypus,
Sure.
echidna. Like they're all marsupials and mammals and stuff. Like they're just
Sure.
our native animals. Yeah. Whereas our animals that we do hunt were once domesticated animals that have gone feral. So
Sure.
yeah.
I had to look up I believe you pronounced it Bangtang.
Yeah.
Is that how you pronounce it? I had to look
Yeah.
that thing up because I wasn't sure what you were talking about. That thing is that is a tank. That is a tank of an
Yeah.
animal.
Yeah, yeah, they're amazing. They are like in my eyes, they're probably the most exclusive animal that you could probably hunt with a bow. Like they are just such a like if you had a bangtang sitting on your wall, like that's just incredible. Like that is just an incredible animal.
I mean, I'm looking at some of these pictures right now, and oh my goodness! I mean the thing just looks looks built to survive, to say the least. I mean, that thing is huge, huge. I mean,
if
that
you get on
is.
Google and you type in Bangtang like hunting Australia, you'll see some of what we've got. Yeah, that's some better. I just did it then. So just type in like Bangtang Australia hunting, and that's what they look like here. I don't know if it's just the ones that they brought over here, but that's the kind of color variations and sizes.
Yeah. Man, that is crazy, absolutely crazy. And those horns, I mean, they come out to a sharp point.
Yeah.
Oh man, that is incredible. And I'm sitting here looking at these pictures, and I'm kind of awestruck at the moment. Okay. So for our audience, I will probably post pictures in here with the podcast. But man, y'all need to look this up. That thing is huge. Like I'm looking at one guy. He's sitting right beside it, and he's got his hands one on each horn. And I mean, it makes this full-grown man look small. It just makes him look tiny. Like, holy cow, that is a huge animal. That is incredible. So, okay, so y'all's broadheads, is that, I'm assuming that's what you shoot all the time, being the co-owner. So you've actually been able to put y'all's broadheads to the test, like firsthand.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. Everything we design, everything we come out with, it gets tested on material. So it gets tested on like wood, brick, tile, steel. And then if it holds up to the quality or the standard that we want, we'll then take that and go out and hunt with it. And then that's what we do before we release any of our products. So we go out and we've got an amazing pro staff team. We've got a fair few guys here based in Australia. We've got a couple of guys in New Zealand, South Africa, and in the United States. Even some guys in Europe that hunt with our gear, and generally they'll get their hands on it first and have a play and let us know what they think, which helps us with our quality assurance.
Sure.
But no, it was I guess in Australia, our hunting culture is very different to the United States. You guys have got a wide acceptance of like mechanical broadheads, for example, whereas hunting with a mechanical broadhead here in Australia is quite taboo. In fact, True Blue Broadheads is the only company in Australia that produces a form of mechanical broadhead.
Really?
Out of all the companies here, yeah. So most companies here in Australia will produce, fix a 2-blade or a 3-blade or a 4-blade fixed blade broadhead, but we are the only ones that do mechanical. So I guess the point, and I guess there's a lot of because of that, there's a lot to prove. We need to prove ourselves. It can't just be another broadhead. So we've got this broadhead called the Crossbreed, which was a design that Phil, my business partner, and I came up with together. There's been three versions of that, and we're at the Elite series now, which is pretty much, there's nothing that we can do that we can change. But when we started off with the Gen 1, it was 160 grains, it was 2.5 inches long, it was just this big battering ram of a broadhead. And the idea of it is, I guess there's a lot of maths and physics behind broadheads that people don't really get too much into, but the idea is that you could strap any fixed blade broadhead into the front and go and hunt with it. So when I shot that buffalo, it was a 260 grain broadhead up front.
Wow.
There's a really another great company in Australia, Ozcut Broadheads. They make some really great fixed blades, and I had their 2-blade Elite series in the front of my crossbreed at the time because we didn't have a fixed blade of our own, and it just destroyed that water buffalo. So essentially, it's a hybrid broadhead, but and we ended up getting put into one of the guys here put us into a magazine. Bow hunting down under, so we ended up getting into a magazine here, but it was kind of that thing of, everyone can shoot goats, everyone can shoot pigs, everyone can shoot deer, but we needed to prove that we could take out the baddest Nordic, the most hardcore animal in Australia, which at the time I had access to was the water buffalo, and that was it. It was well, here we go. And it worked, and it was kind of like a bit of an accolade, to say, hey, we did it. And since then, there's been lots of water buffalo that have been taken, and lots of scrub bull that have been taken, and big game there's been all across the world. So I guess for me, being a hunter and designing hunting gear, the biggest thing that I noticed straight away is I grew up, if you're going to kill something, you have to do it ethically, but it has to have purpose, has to have meaning. And I noticed straight away the standards of bow hunting in the bow hunting world. There is really minimal standards. There is really not much that holds manufacturers accountable to the quality of the products that we produce.
I think a lot of it gets to be a numbers game.
Right, yeah.
It's just how much can they pump out in, a short amount of time. And like you said, the quality's lost.
That's right. So, yeah, it's good. It's an enjoyable process being a manufacturer of broadheads. But yeah, so we've only got the two. So we've got the crossbreed, and then we've got the Impulse. So the Impulse is that nice, solid built, traditional carbon steel, short. So it's the shortest fixed blade in the Australian market. So it's got the shortest effect, and the reason that we did that is the shorter a broadhead is, the less effect it can have on the spine of the arrow as well.
Right.
So that to hopefully aid in the flight. So shot placement is always key. So anything that we can do to make sure it flies perfectly is key. But a lot of
you're looking at great penetration for a full pass. I don't know about buffalo or water buffalo and those big animals, but on stuff that I typically hunt over here, at that you're also looking at, because of that's going to help with a full pass through. Clean shot all the way through the animal.
Which is the ideal shot, I guess, at the end of the day, isn't it?
Right.
You want to get all the way through. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
So yeah.
So you were talking about all these animals, different animals that y'all have success stories with y'all's broadheads. Have y'all yet had a bear taken down with any? I mean, I'd be kind of shocked if y'all haven't, but
a couple of. Well, that's the thing. I mean, we get customers submitting photos to us, so I always think that's probably only 10% of what actually gets taken out.
Sure.
Everything that gets sold, you don't know what's getting. At the end of the day, once it's on a shelf and you've got a shop selling it, you don't know who it's going to or what it's getting used for. But from what we've had a couple of bears taken with our crossbreed broadhead. But the Impulse, as I said, just got released yesterday, so
right.
As of yet.
It'll happen.
Yeah, it'll happen. Yeah.
I've actually got a bear trip planned for this year. I'm hoping we get to make it. We've got a lot of things happening right now around that time of year, but I'm hoping so badly that I get to make it. It's up toward like Maine, going over in some of those areas. And oh my goodness, it's been a dream hunt of mine that I've wanted to do since I was just a kid. And of course, I'd be going with a bow. And oh my goodness, like that is a dream dream that's something that I would love to do. I haven't had the opportunity to yet, and I'm hoping we can make it happen this year. Really looking forward to it. But man, I'm telling you, that's a feat, in my opinion. You know, talking about, you know, the differences hunting here compared to there. You know, I look at it saying a bear would be, you know, a huge, you know, capper for me. That's a huge deal for me. But then I look at, you know, going over there with a bow and trying to take down an animal that can weigh upwards of 15, 16, even 2,000 pounds, you know, 1,600 pounds, you know, and to take that with a bow, man, that just sounds wild, absolutely wild.
Yeah, it's funny when you put it in that kind of perspective, yeah. As you said, I guess we keep referring to what you're kind of comfortable with, it's normal for us, you know.
Sure.
Shooting a water buffalo, but for you going and shooting a bear, like that's like, what? A freaking bear? Yeah.
You know, I was actually listening to Joe Rogan, and I believe he was talking with Remy Warren, and they were talking about an experience that Remy Warren had. Him and his crew, they were out, I think they were elk hunting, and they actually had a bear come in and start to attack the group, and one of the guys ended up actually somehow jumping on top of the bear. Yes, and the bear ran off. I'm like, oh my gosh, I would freak out. Like, I mean, I'm sure they was too, but you know, I would be beside myself. Like, I don't know what I would think. That would just be so wild. Absolutely wild.
Yeah. What a great story that one is, hey. Yeah.
I mean,
he's hunted here in Australia as well, I'm pretty sure.
Yes.
Yeah, he's a machine, that bloke. Unstoppable.
Oh yeah, definitely somebody that's not just podcasts that he goes on or just even short clips, but just listening to the man. He knows what he's doing. He knows what he's talking about, and you can tell he has a true love and a true passion for it. And I think that's one thing that a lot of times it gets underseen from people is, you know, you listen to them and they're like, yeah, they have great stories, but you may not hear the passion. And that's one thing I can respect with people like that is you get to hear their passion over, you know, their topics of whatever they're hunting, you know. And I don't care if it's you know, small upland bird hunting or if it's big dangerous game hunting. You know, if somebody has a passion for it, it just makes it so much better to listen to those. I mean, you almost feel related or relatable to that person, you know, a little bit more, just being able to dive in and hear that passion from them, you know.
Yeah.
So 100%. y'all have a wide variety. Okay, so you said basically everything that is non-native is what y'all focus on for hunting wise. So y'all actually have a wide array of different feral goats and like different like subspecies of deer and things like that, correct?
That's correct, yeah. So we've got it's 5 or 6, I need to get it right, but we've got and they come from different areas of the world, which makes it even more fun. So I honestly, I think Australia is probably one of the most underrated hunting places in the world. Like, we don't get enough credit. Like, we have such an array. Like, we've got English red stag. So these big, beautiful English and Scottish kind of red stags, you know, if anyone gets a chance to Google what they look like, they're absolutely beautiful. We've got fallow deer, which comes from Europe as well, and they've got these big beautiful palms, and then we've got our samba deer, which come from Indonesia. They are a big animal too. They can get they're actually I think samba are our biggest deer in terms of weight, and they are a trophy animal. They are so smart, they're so cunning with their sense of smell, their sight, their hearing. And they're generally down and found in our Victorian high country, so our big alpine kind of high country down in Victoria there, and they're just an absolute unit of an animal, and most people, for good reason, hunt them with rifle because they are just so hard, and they've been pursued, I'm pretty sure, back where they're from, they get targeted by tigers. or some sort of big cat species hunts them. So they're over thousands of years of evolution. They've become these absolute units at getting around predators. Then we've got our hog deer. Hog deer are rare as hen's teeth. They are a small deer. They're a small deer, very, very small deer. They'd be almost the size of I guess like a dog, like some sort of dog.
They're small.
Labradors. They're real small. Yeah, they're not anything in terms of, I guess, people wouldn't be looking at them and going, wow, what a massive trophy, masculine kind of animal. But it's their rarity and their challenge to get onto them that
Sure.
I think makes them desirable. Then we've got rooster deer, which I'm pretty sure come from somewhere in Indonesia or some part of one of those northern countries that sit above us. Rooster deer are awesome too. I haven't got one yet, but that's definitely a desired goal. They are found across Australia. I know that there's a fair population of them just south of Sydney, down near Wollongong, where they're in just absolute massive numbers there. And then we've got our axis or chital, as they're known, deer. I think you guys have got them in Hawaii and stuff like that.
Yep. They actually, axis deer, in the state bordering me, Texas, they've actually got to the point to where they came in as exotics, but now they just overrun. I mean, they're a nuisance down there. They've gotten so populated. It's nothing to go down there towards centralized Texas and even further south and just see them walking around in neighborhoods. I mean, just awesome. All over the place.
How good is that?
It's beautiful. It is so beautiful. They are a beautiful creature.
They are, yeah. And they're so flighty and so smart, yeah.
Yes.
I think that's all our deer. I know that there are elk hybrids in Australia as well. So the elk interbreed with the red deer that we have here. So there are some, and I know that there's some Chinese whispers of elk in Australia. I don't know if I would never say that they're pure breed or anything like that, but there's definitely it's amongst the hunting community. I guess it's knowledge that there are. I think the formal name is a wapiti, or a red deer elk hybrid. Nothing to what they have in places like New Zealand where they've got these monsters, but yeah, they're definitely. But then I guess we've got foxes, rabbits, hares, cats, like anything that used to be domesticated. That's kind of gone wild. But I guess most people in Victoria, New South Wales and stuff, like we hunt goats and pigs primarily as well.
I did see a thing one time talking about the hunting feral cats over there. Like that's actually legitimately like a big thing over there, I guess.
Yeah.
From the way I understand it.
A dead cat's a good cat over here. Yeah.
And see, a lot of us over here that own property and ranches and farms, it's kind of like the more cats, the better. For killing mice and snakes and, moles and things like that. But yeah, when I remember reading an article over that, I had come across it talking about hunting feral cats, and I was like, wait a minute, this is legit. And I ended up clicking on a link. I believe they were doing them with, this one guy was hunting them with a blowgun, or a dart gun, however you want to say it. You stick it up to your mouth and you just blow, and they were hunting them with those, and I was like, that's a thing? Like, what in the world? I'd never heard of that before. That just blows my mind.
Well, I guess the problem with cats and wild dogs and those kind of predator species, even the fox, they are cute and they are beautiful. They're like any animal. They've got their own sense of beauty and what makes them elegant. But Australia and New Zealand, which are neighbouring countries, we have the highest rate of extinction of native population of species in the world. So there's no place in the world where native animals go extinct more than here in Australia or New Zealand.
Wow.
That's primarily to do with human development and activity.
Sure.
But also the other major factor is the wild cats and the wild dogs and that kind of stuff that, they kill off. Australia for thousands of years has been a country with no predatory animals at all.
Right.
We might have like the Tasmanian tiger or the just here and there might be, or dingoes up in the northern parts of Australia, but for the majority, when you talk about a whole massive country, a continent of its own, we don't really have predatory animals here at all.
Right.
So when they introduce these cats and they introduce these wild dogs and foxes and stuff, a lot of the animals here had evolved to not have to be equated with being chased and pursued by predators. So
Sure.
I actually seen on the news the other day that the Australian government is looking at doing some genetic population culling. So what that means is they say they'll introduce, I don't know, I'll give you an example. They might introduce 10 cats into the wild population, right? But those 10 cats also have been genetically altered so that their reproduction rates and their ability to procreate and conceive and to successfully breed and produce young is significantly impacted. So they go out, so those 10 cats go out and they breed with the wild cats, and then those offspring, then when they go to breed, will find it significantly harder to produce offspring. So there's this whole new kind of program where they're trying to, instead of just shooting them, trapping them, poisoning them, is actually kind of using these genetically altered cats and foxes and things to bring the population down naturally. So
Wow. So they're doing what they can, like, to legitimately bring that down, because it sounds like, exactly what you said. It sounds like the animals, especially the native species, they need that break. They need that time to just recoup, be able to flourish like they once did before all the heavy predation came about. So dingoes, they're not native over there, or at least
dingoes are, yeah.
Oh, they are? Okay. So now dingoes, I'm assuming that's going to be like what the equivalent of to what we call like a coyote, right? The dingo is actually like, it's not just a feral dog, it's an actual like wild dog species, correct?
Correct, yeah.
Man. And it's like around here where I'm at, I don't know how, obviously I don't know how things work over there, with predator control and that kind of stuff, but it's like over here, if we're on our property and we see a coyote, that's what we would say a dead dog. That's a dead dog all day long. We shoot them on sight. There's no season for them, and it's because the numbers. We have a dwindling number. Right now, we're in a state of decline for our turkey population, for our wild turkey population, and a lot of it is because of high predation numbers, kind of like what you're talking about with the animals over there. We're having a similar issue with like our turkey population, with the coyotes and bobcats. Bobcats are another big one that gets underplayed because people don't see them very often, and people think, oh, because you don't see them, there must not be that many. But for every one you do see, there's probably 20 that you haven't seen.
Wow.
There's a bunch of them, and they are, they are absolutely, they run havoc on our wildlife, and they don't, and if they're not managed, they can really get out of control really quick.
Yeah, I can imagine. That's pretty much the same thing here with our foxes and cats. If they're not controlled, like even the wild pigs, for example. We were hunting wild pigs last weekend. We shot 4 wild pigs over the course of a day, And we were talking about it, and you get one pig, and one pig has a baby piglet. That piglet, from the day it's born to 3 months later, at that 3 month point, has the potential to then be have reproductive ready. And so then that pig can then breed, and they breed 4 times a year. So that one pig that's born will have, it will have 3 other it'll be able to reproduce itself at least 3 times by the end of the year.
Isn't that crazy?
And they can have. I've seen the other day we seen a sow, this sow come out, and I think she had like 12 little piglets chasing behind her. They were everywhere. So and the cats are the same. I guess the thing about the pigs is they are elusive, but to shoot a cat with a bow, or to shoot a cat at all, you'll get a pat on the back. To shoot foxes, you'll get a pat on the back. It's you're doing your part. But even our Department of Primary Industries, which is our they're kind of our, how do I explain it?
Like a wildlife department?
Correct, yeah. They even acknowledge, when you go do your state forest license and stuff like that, they acknowledge straight away that there's no way in Australia that we will see the end of wild and feral animals in Australia. They're just, deer in Australia 50 years ago just wasn't really a thing. And now we have so many deer. We have our population of deer, there's sambar deer which started down near bottom parts of Victoria. Now you find them as far up as New South Wales, northern parts of New South Wales and Queensland. That is a huge stretch of land that they're breeding in. And I'm not, it's hard because if we don't have these invasive species, we have nothing to hunt. But I got no problem at all with hunting predatory species and wiping foxes and cats and wild dogs off the face of the earth here in Australia. But our herbivore species, like our deer and our goats and our pigs, pigs are a problem, but our deer species in particular, other than eating food for that would be for farming cattle and stuff, I do know they have an impact on our farmers in terms of how much feed gets eaten. I think one farmer I spoke to reckons he was getting about 15 to 20% of his feed was going from wild deer.
Really?
But
that's a big number.
It is, yeah. And so we have things where Australia will get helicopter culling, and hunters, we hate we know why they do it, and it's very politically charged. To have an opinion about anything these days, there's always going to be some uprisal, but they'll get up in these helicopters, and the farmers. So it is done in a good way where the farmers can declare to the DPI how many pigs or how many deer that they're seeing in the area. Then the DPI can come in and say, hey, we're going to do an aerial cull. Do you give us permission to do the cull on your land? It's depending on where you sit politically. People might go, yeah, screw the deer, let's get rid of them. Screw the pigs or goats or whatever, let's get rid of them.
Wow.
Then you've got then you've got your hunters and the people that appreciate the animal and appreciate them being there.
Sure.
And then you've got the other side of the fence where you got your greeny kind of left wing people who don't want anything to die. They don't want them even hunted. They just want them to live their life. So you get these three kind of mindsets. But anyway, when they do finally get in the helicopter, they got up in these helicopters and they'll go through an area and they'll have I think they use semi-automatic. I don't know if they use fully automatic rifles or weapons, but they get up in these choppers and they just shoot the shit out of all these deer.
Now that's going to be government ran, correct?
Correct, yeah.
Because y'all have gun laws that prohibit y'all civilians, right, from owning semi-automatic rifles. Is that correct?
Yes and no. It's a bit. I guess things aren't exactly black and white. So in Australia, we don't have you don't own a rifle or a gun for protection. It's not a part of you don't own it with the pretense that you're owning it to protect yourself from something. But we can own like there's heaps of guns in Australia. So for most people, we get bolt action rifles, we get shotguns, and we use those in the purpose of pest eradication or hunting purposes, or just even recreationally, just target shooting and stuff like that. And generally, those weapons are locked in it. Well, not generally, they are locked in a safe. The police can come at any time and check the safe. There's background checks on, have you been in a criminally violent, have you robbed someone? Have you been in an assault? Have you got domestic violence history? And that kind of stuff comes into play. Now recognizing as well that a handgun isn't necessarily a hunting tool, so we have it's essentially a handgun is a man killer. So we can own handguns, but the handguns have to be held at the local gun, like we've got SSAA, so they're like a government,
like an armory.
Yeah, they're like a body that they have safes and they have security and they have a place where you can shoot them, and that's where it stays. So but when it comes to semi-automatic, as you kind of come out into the country, you have people who shoot kangaroos for because we can use our kangaroos as a form of food. There's more kangaroos in Australia before colonization than there was. So there's more now than there was before. So we use them as a source of food, and those guys can use semi-automatic weapons. And there's farmers, like if you own a certain amount of land, you can put in applications. You're in a different zone, so you can put in applications for semi-automatic rifles and stuff. I guess at the end of the day, you have to have a purpose. It has to be, not any Joe Blow can go get a semi-automatic weapon. I mean, last weekend, there must have been someone. We were out camping on one of the hills, and we could hear a semi-automatic rifle going off on one of the blocks near us. Someone was just going to town on something. So it's not, and we have, I don't know about fully automatic. I don't know where the line draws there, but I know that it's just gun classes. So you have, as you go up, you need to really prove why you believe that you need that.
Right.
But I've got mates who live in suburbia who've got 6 or 7 rifles that just sit in a gun cabinet in their basement, kind of thing, And at any given time, people could do something stupid with them, but we don't have that here in Australia, I guess.
Sure.
Yeah.
See, I know it's like over here, especially it's really coming from the left wing. They're wanting to crack down on gun control here, and they're wanting to ban this gun and any accessory that you can put on it to do this and that. I mean, there's a lot of regulations that they're wanting to put on it, and I mean, the truth of the matter is this: is any Joe Blow can go down the road and pick up a gun. And here in my state, it's not illegal for me to buy a gun. And then if so-and-so down the street says, hey, I'll give you $500 for that gun, it's not illegal for me to just sell it to them without a federal background check, without anything like that. I can just legally, I can sell it to them and be in good conscience that, I've done nothing to break the law. Now, granted, some of us don't necessarily like doing that because you don't know, especially if you don't know the person. You know what I mean? You don't want your name on something that could potentially be bad, so a lot of us don't do that. But then again, it also comes back to like our guns don't have to be, as of right now, they don't have to be registered. I live in a non-registry state, so it's like we don't have to actually register our firearms to our actual person. Like we don't have to register them to me when I go buy one. When I go buy one from the gun shop, they send off a federal background check to make sure I have no domestic violence or I think it's a class B misdemeanor or greater or anything like that. They make sure that we don't have none of those things, but they don't actually register the gun to my name. So it's like I'm not willing to put a number on it, but out of all the guns and shotguns and rifles and pistols that I own, which is, I mean, in all honesty, probably more than the average person, out of all of them that I own, none of them are like, if the government wanted to say, Jonathan Witter, he has this gun registered to him, this one, and this one, that's all his guns. No, they'll be able to say, yeah, he's applied for them because they've ran background checks on him, but that does not prove purchase. So yeah, there's like nothing that actually ties me to a specific firearm. I mean, and so it's like our gun laws are kind of lax, but in the same breath, they are wanting to crack down on them. It's really gotten to the point to where a lot of places, they don't want us to have a firearm at all. Some of them, you know, they're going on this big kick right now. The big kick right now over here is the AR-15, or I should say the AR platform. And most of these people talking about it, they don't understand what the actual caliber is. You know, they don't understand that, you know, a 223 or a 5.56. Don't get me wrong, because you can shoot, you know, 10 or 15 of them down range real quick, it's no less deadly than my 30-06. You know, you know, it's, you know, my 30-06 is going to do more damage. They just don't understand it.
Is that a semi-automatic as well?
The one that I have is not, but they do make them that way. And it's crazy because now. Go ahead.
No, sorry. You go. It's all good.
Oh, so it's like now we're at the day and age now to where you can put almost any caliber on an AR platform. I mean, we even see shotguns, 12-gauge shotguns, being put on an AR platform, and it's beautiful. It's amazing. Like, I love how creative you can be, specifically with the AR platform. And actually, me and a few guys that I work with, I got off work at 6 o'clock this morning, and me and some of the guys at work, we were actually talking about the AR platform and how, really, in all honesty, how diverse it is, because you can do almost anything to it. And the cool part is if I have a AR chambered in, you know, a 300 blackout, and you have one, I can say, hey, I like your part better. Do you want to trade? And we can literally just take the parts off, give it to each other, trade, and put it back together, and our rifle's good to go.
Yeah, right.
You know,
That's cool.
It's incredible. But there are a lot of organizations here in America that are, I mean, straight up, it's not just limiting us to only bolt action or only lever action. No, there's a lot of them. They straight up, they think if you take the guns out of the law-abiding civilians' hands, then everybody's going to be safe, which causes a problem.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I mean, I think because when we had first started talking about you coming onto the podcast, of course, I was curious because I've heard of people going over to Australia to hunt, but I've never looked into it. And one of the first things that popped up was an article over y'all's gun laws, and that was kind of why I wanted to bring it up, was because just in that small article, now granted this was a small article, I didn't go into depth into reading y'all's laws and everything, but it said banned guns, semi-auto rifles, semi-automatic, and pump shotguns. And I was like, whoa, you know, like, wow, like, okay, so how do things work over there? And then, you know, it's crazy. Like you said, it's not necessarily black and white, but you can read something, and it, you know, even just reading a small portion, that right there made me think, you know, hey, these are the things that y'all can't have. When come to find out, yeah, y'all can shoot them, you know, y'all can have them. It's just not the way it might be over here. So that might be a reason as to why hunting isn't as popular over there as what it is. I'm not sure about that, but, you know, that could be a contributing factor.
Yeah, right. Yeah, it's I guess it's that mentality, like, if you look at the history of Australia versus the history of the United States, like, we didn't have a civil war in the same way that you guys had a civil war against the British. Your country's, I think, 200 and something years older than ours in terms of colonization. So when you look at, and we have constitution and all that kind of stuff as well.
Right.
But when it was formed, it made sense. You know, it was made in the light that we had to get rid of British rule, and then you also had a civil war. So the right to bear arms makes a lot of sense. And then, but I guess the challenge is the technology has come so far, and the average Joe Blow, instead of owning a single shot musket or a bolt action rifle, you can now get these high powered weapons. So what happened in Australia is we had a massacre, a massive one down in Port Arthur, which is down in Tasmania. It's like an island state, and this guy, he's just an absolute psychopath. Went into from what I understand, went into a cafe or a restaurant in the middle of the day and just went in there with a semi-automatic rifle and just started shooting everyone in this cafe. He then chased all these people down the street with the rifle and continued to kill them. I don't know how many people. I'm just going to have a look up. Give me 1 second.
Yeah, I've actually got it looked up right now. It shows that it was a 2-day affair. It was April 28th through the April 29th. This says there was a mass shooting in which 35 people were killed and 23 others were wounded. Man.
Yeah. And from what I know, he also went into a building and pretended to be a victim, and then set that building on fire, and and those people still in that building too. So it was quite, in the terms of Australia's history, no one had ever done that before. And there's a lot of conspiracies as well around it. Like there's conspiracies around and they're always going to be around these kind of things, that people believe that it was government interference and that it was set up to bring our gun laws down and to make us de-arm Australians.
Sure.
But if you take it for what it is, it was a really good, not the average Joe Blow in Australia doesn't really need a semi-automatic rifle to go hunting. We don't need all our deer and pigs and stuff. They can be shot easily with a bolt action rifle. If you need 15 rounds to kill a pig, then you're doing something wrong. Hang up the gun and you need to go back to basic training. So I guess in that light. And the good thing is, I feel sorry for you guys sometimes. I as a kid, I never worried about going to school. I remember I was talking to a mate, Dustin, and he was telling me that when he goes into a restaurant, he thinks about where he sits in the restaurant according to where he can get out the quickest if there's an issue. And I've never in my entire life thought in that frame of mind, or gone to school and thought, and anyone can carry a knife, and that can be an issue, or a hammer, or that kind of thing. But I think it's the level of damage that can be done in the shortest amount of period of time. I guess it's that challenge too, though, because we don't have the capabilities to defend ourselves against our government if they end up being tyrannical. Which is a challenge in itself. We've seen a lot of things down here when COVID came through. So I didn't realize how much of almost like a dictatorship of government we had here until COVID, because they were mandating vaccines. They were my wife and I, when we moved out here, we couldn't drive any further than 3 miles from our house at one stage for a few months.
Oh, wow.
They limited out where we could shop, what we could do with our jobs, how much. They really locked us down. It was almost this massive fear thing across the whole of Australia. And when people protested and when people rose to the occasion and tried to fight back against the government, they labelled us as anti-vaxxers and people who are insane and selfish. And but the crazy thing is, they were doing they were doing crazy stuff. You know, they were, and it wasn't like if we looked at the stats, there was one stage where we had 40,000 cases, and I don't know how many people died. It wasn't that. It wasn't in. It'd be lucky to be in the hundreds, but the majority of them were over the age of 65. The majority of them were, you know, sick or had a pre-medical condition. There was no one dying under the age of like anyone young, or it wasn't like. And if you amplified that stat and across Australia, it wasn't really a big issue. The COVID virus in Australia, it wasn't a big issue, like compared to the stats we get on, you know, like suicide in Australia, or I don't know, cancers or any of that kind of stuff that kills people far more. And it was crazy to see our government, like we had, I'll never forget it, and I think a lot of Australians who I guess come from the same political idea as I do, is that I remember watching these Aussies standing on the top of one of our memorial things for like our Anzacs, like so for some of our military soldiers, there was this big memorial area, and they were protesting on it, and they had the Australian flags. It was very patriotic, that, you know, they're saying, you know, we don't want to be locked down, we don't want to be mandated to have vaccines, this goes against our human rights. And it was so incredible to, like, I feel like people need to pick up a history book and realize the severity of what's happening, you know, like you really need to understand that this is one step towards communism. This is one step towards dictatorship. Like, this is not right. And they literally got these people and they were shooting them with the police in riot gear were shooting them with like sandbags, and they were gassing them, and they were like pretty much deterring them. And it was just like this horrific scene where all these women and children and men were getting shot and screaming, and they're getting shot off a memorial site. And you're just thinking, like, that site represents freedom, and freedom of speech, and freedom of thought, and freedom of opinion, and the right to protest, and the things that we take for, like, a lot of people take for granted. Like, they don't live in China or Russia. You know, you have the right to not be killed for an opinion. And our government literally just came in and just started shooting them. And I just, in that moment, for the first time ever, I was like, I wish we had the gun laws that you guys have over there, because I felt like that would not happen if they thought everyone was carrying. That would not happen if they thought that a guy standing there waving the Australian flag had a pistol in his pocket, or a you know, it was disgraceful. And that's my opinion. And I honestly lean a little bit to the right, but yeah, it was, I guess, in terms of gun laws, it does keep us safe, and I don't think any Australian would be mad enough to pull out a bolt action rifle and start shooting people. I mean, it's a big weapon. Sure. It's slow pace. Our police and our military have automatic and semi-automatic weapons and handguns and stuff, so it just wouldn't stand a chance. But it was in that moment where I was like, and my mate Jeremy from the United States in Kentucky, he was telling me that you guys were going through similar stuff, but I know for a fact that a lot of that stuff didn't get passed because to do it would mean potential civil war, would mean potential you know, conflict. And that is, in that moment I was like, well, yes, we don't have mass shootings, and yes, we don't have children getting shot in schools, and yes, we don't have you know, like, you guys have ridiculous stats when it comes to people being shot and wounded and stuff. But in that moment, I was like, far out. If our government wanted to become tyrannical, I mean, how much could we do about it?
Right.
Yeah. Like, to this day, like, if I don't get vaccinated, I get fired. I lose my job.
Really?
So, yeah, and there's lots of different industries that have that same mentality. So, and we can't do anything about it. Even if we protest, we get shot. And our media did a great job of labeling anyone who thought that being mandatory vaccinated or vaccinated in general was an anti-vaxxer, was
the enemy.
Australia. It was the enemy. Yeah, they did a really great job at doing that. Even to the point where turning people against their own people. And if anyone picked up a historical book or literature on even just World War II or World War One, around like the Jewish population in Germany, you can actually see that from start to finish how they convinced their country and their people to kill Jews and to do horrendous things. And we were seeing that here in Australia. We were seeing the first steps of any discourse in trying to make people subhuman is to start labeling them as such. So anyway, sorry, I went on a bit of a rant there, but
no, you're good. You're good.
Yeah, in one hand, I'm kind of grateful we don't have those gun laws here in Australia. Like, probably for the most part, it's a great thing. But when push comes to shove, even like the fact that the rising power of China in the world, and you think to yourself, like, America has one of the greatest militaries in the world, but you guys are about to lose financial. You guys represent democracy and freedom of thought, and you guys are about to lose the economic power that you have. You're about to become second to China.
Oh yeah,
and
that's been in the works for a while, in my opinion.
Absolutely. And the thing that I think of is that at least you guys have the biggest land-based militia. Like, your population, just everyone has guns. So like, as soon as they came in, everyone would be armed to the hilt,
Oh yeah.
Whereas a small country like here in Australia, we rely quite heavily on our American alliance with you guys for China not to push down here into the southern parts of the Pacific Ocean.
Right.
They're coming. Yeah, they're coming.
We saw a lot of similar things happen with the COVID-19, and very much so. Even some of the news stations and media, even some of the ones that swing more right than left, they did a really good job of kind of doing what you're talking about, labeling us anti-vaxxers, and we're a part of the problem. We are the problem, not a part of the problem. We are the problem, And, it's like, okay, so, my mother passed away during the time of the COVID-19, and she got labeled a COVID-19 death. And I hated it. It made me so mad. I held that woman's hand to her very last breath, and it made me so mad. And there's a lot of conspiracies over the whole, was it man-made, or was it meant to be this disastrous, but the truth of the matter is there's so much more sicknesses. There's so many other things going on in the world that are 100 times more disastrous than the COVID-19 will ever dream of being. And it's like, I don't try to tell anybody how to live their life, by no means, but in the same breath, I'm not sure about over there, but I know over here, the far left swingers, they have the thing that they like to call themselves, and that's the tolerant left. But it's very much the tolerant left, as in they are the peaceful people. They are the people that will. It's okay that you have your opinion. We can live our own lives separately. We can agree to disagree and get along. But the moment you talk to any of them, or I'm sure y'all saw. It made world news every time there was a protest, because there was murders, there was buildings being burnt down to the ground. I would have been scared to own a business inside a metroplex anywhere here in the U.S. I was actually doing some filming for a little company. And we were getting ready to have like this big event take place, right? And I was actually doing some filming for them down in Dallas, Texas. And they were like, all right, where we're driving through, don't be shocked if you see protesters. Like, they were giving us this whole warning, like, like, this is like normal right now. And like this was like right after the COVID-19 had taken off, and like they were just starting to lift some of the regulations of what you can and can't do, right? And so we were driving down, and these buildings are boarded up. There's people marching down the roads. They've got roads blocked. I mean, we're having to take other turns just to try to get... I mean, it's taken twice as long to get to our destination just because of everything going on. And, I mean, you've got... There's these beautiful, beautiful buildings and shops, and even some of these places that are just ma and pa kind of shops, just family owned. They're not big corporations or nothing, but all their windows are busted out. Walls are broken down with vehicles and sledgehammers, and there's all this violence. And I'm like, this is because y'all are the tolerant left? Like, more like the tolerant right, that we're not actually standing up and doing something. But it's like you said, we don't want another civil war, because the truth of the matter is at least here, the people that do swing more right, we don't forget about history, because when you forget about history, that's when history is going to repeat itself.
Yeah, those who forget the past are most likely to repeat it.
Absolutely, absolutely. And there's no part of that I don't. The truth is I don't want to go through another civil war. I've never obviously I've never been through a civil war, but I don't want our country to have to go back through that. That's terrible. And the reason I say that is because it's not just men fighting. It's men, it's women, it's grandchildren, it's babies. All these lives are going to be lost in order for this to happen. I don't want to necessarily see it happen. But man, it's like you said, anybody that forgets history, it's going to repeat itself. And it's just crazy.
I remember seeing so much footage. Another political thing that's crazy is that Black Lives Matter stuff. And I just remember being like, can I say the F word, or is that censored? I just, what the hell?
Sure, there you go.
What the hell is going on over there? Like, you've got all this looting and rioting and destruction, and like people setting shit on fire, and and I was just like, what the hell? And I just think, America, everyone's got guns. Why aren't people just like coming out of their businesses and just unloading a whole bunch of rounds into people? But I guess it's that whole, I think, like, America.
The reason why we don't is because I'm going to take. Did you watch the whole thing over Kyle Rittenhouse?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So
that was ridiculous.
I applaud that guy. I applaud him. I 100% applaud him. He was out there. Yeah, sure, maybe he shouldn't have been out there, but neither should have the protesters. None of that crap that went on should have been happening. So that put to the side, because nobody was in the right there. That put to the side. That guy was out there. It didn't matter what side of the fence that they were on. It didn't matter if they swung far left or if they swung far right. He was out there offering help. Although he may not have been this top-trained medical care physician, whatever, he was out there offering help to anybody that needed it, and then turned around and got attacked himself. And he did something that most of us Americans aren't willing to do, and that was to stand up and to actually do something. And when he did shoot it, he's gone through this whole thing ever since the beginning of that's happened to even now that his name has been cleared, he is still catching scrutiny left and right. And yeah, there's a lot of things, like he just landed, like, I want to say, I could be wrong on this, but I want to say he just landed a $25 million deal against a person here in the U.S. because they were badgering him and calling him out and like totally lying about things that was going on. And he just landed this big lawsuit against them. And the thing is generally speaking, though, we don't want to go through that. I am all for protesting. Now, but there's a difference between protesting and destruction. There's a difference. And most of these people, I honestly feel, I can't prove this, but I honestly feel it's an attention grab. It's, look at me, look at what I stand for, look at my cause, because you don't care about me, I'm going to make you care.
Yeah.
I'm like,
Yeah.
whoa. You know, we're all here to make a living. You know, the quote unquote American dream. We can do it, and you ain't got to burn down somebody's building or shoot somebody to prove it. And that's how that's how the majority of us feel, is like I don't want to go out and have to light somebody up. But now, if they come to my doorstep, they better not be holding their breath, because I'm not afraid to protect what I have. One thing that threw a lot of us, talking about government control and things like that, one thing that threw a lot of us for a loop was when Biden had made a mention. I'm paraphrasing here because I can't remember the exact words. I'd have to look it up. Something to the extent of, what do us gun-owning Americans think we're going to do against a government that has nuclear warfare?
Ooh.
I said, what did I just hear? Did I hear that come out of our president's mouth? Did he just, in a roundabout way, threaten to kill the U.S. citizens that love their Second Amendment with nuclear warfare?
Let's be honest, that guy, he could have said anything. Like, I'm lucky. He'd be lucky on a given day to be able to string a sentence together. Let's be honest.
I'll give you that. The man is a pathetic joke of a human being. Like, me personally, I believe he's a puppet. Yeah, he might be the quote unquote president, but the dude's a puppet. He's a puppet all day long. He's being pushed and told what to say and all this other stuff, and anytime he comes up with a cognitive sentence that he puts together himself, it just falls to jambles. But it's just like, I cannot believe he said that.
Yeah, well, it's all about it's all is the term espionage, I think it's called, where external parties are coming in and influencing,
coming in to destroy
democracy.
and yep.
Yeah, like I was talking to a mate about it the other day, about TikTok, for example. And so TikTok is a Chinese app, as we all know. And the app was developed to, in China, if you are on the app rewards, like if you, for example, are doing something breakthrough in science, or something academic, or something to do with positive social output or positive economic output, it rewards things that benefit society. So the videos in China are actually, so say if for example, you and I, we're making a podcast and we're making a video and we're talking about how good it is to go to school, how good it is to get an education, how good it is to manufacture here in China, or like we were Chinese and we were manufacturing goods or something like that. Anything that's or acting in a positive light, like helping someone across the road, all those real positive things, those videos get the most views, those videos get the most likes, they get the most push. But here in the West, with our Western countries, the app has been developed so that anything that is controversial or dumb or seen as unproductive to society or is actually promoted. So if you think of it in that light, that's espionage. That's a government trying to, through real micro steps, challenge the social constructs and social fabric and the ability for society to think, and influencing through media how we are as people. And that and stuff like that on a micro level, on an app, on a phone, can definitely be seen all the way up the food chain. Like in Australia.
Oh yeah.
I was saying this the other day. We just elected a new prime minister, and a new government has stepped in. But I was reading an article where 1/3 of the donations on both parties, so our left and our right, our Liberal and our Labor parties, have not been disclosed where the funds have gone, like where the public donating has come from. And there's lots of politicians that have been caught out recently for taking public donating and not disclosing where that money comes from. So there is that factor when you think about, and you think of a country like as big and as powerful as America. Like, it's not, even when you had your postal vote stuff come in and people were voting and there was more votes than there was, or less votes, and things were all hairy, like, I don't blame you guys for being suspicious and wanting to have a semi-automatic weapon. Let's be honest.
it really gets crazy. And now I'm not going to claim to be a diehard. I'm not going to claim to be a diehard right wingist. Now, when you walk into my house, you see the animals that I've harvested. You see a house that we literally stripped out with our bare hands. That we redid everything ourselves. When you walk into my studio, you see the things that I worked my butt off for day in and day out, just working my tail off for, the vehicles that I own, the land that I have, even my dogs. I love my dogs to death. Even though one's a big dummy, he's a 160-pound dummy, but I love him to death.
Yeah.
I've worked hard for everything I have. Although I might not be rich and famous, I am living what I would classify as an American dream, where I have my freedom. So, but in the same breath, when it comes to like politics or voting for a new president or whatever we're doing, or even on a local level, talking about people that are going to represent my beliefs, I can't look at only one person and say this person has everything correct. This person has everything right. I have to look at, me personally, I have to look at both sides and say, I agree more with this side or I agree more with that side. I'm registered Republican, but I'm not afraid to say, hey, look, this guy over here has something better to offer than this guy over here. I'm not afraid to do that.
The lesser of two evils sometimes, isn't it?
Not this past presidential election with Biden and Trump is where it came down to, but the one before, when it was Hillary Clinton and President Trump. It's like, don't get me wrong, Trump to me was an obvious choice from Hillary, but it came down to and this is how I explain it. I know this is kind of a gross way to explain it, but this is the way I explain it to people. Did you want a pile of crap with a bunch of nuts in it, or would you rather a bunch of crap with corn in it? It's like, that's how we had to decide our presidential election. But then again, it's like, I looked at it and I was like, although Donald Trump's a loudmouth and he's hot-headed, the truth of the matter is he was a businessman, which is exactly at that time what we needed, and we still need and unfortunately don't have. But he was a businessman and he was good at it. But we've got a lot of people over here that truly, in all honesty, will only ever vote Republican and not even give a glimpse at the other side and what they have to say. And I'm like, at that point, you have, in my opinion, at that point, that's ignorance. You have no standpoint then to complain about anything, because the only thing you know is one side.
Yeah, that's right.
It just blows my mind.
Yeah, you have to have free thought. Like, you have to be able to. There's no right or wrong. It's just the lesser, as you said, like the lesser of two evils, the lesser of good. Two piles of crap. I remember sitting here in Australia, and because America, and I don't think people take it seriously enough, but America represents the free world. America, the UK, the Commonwealth. So we're Australia, New Zealand, India, Canada, and then whatever other countries are a part of that. Our countries and Europe represent democracy and free thought and stuff like that. And I remember sitting here in Australia when you had Hillary versus Donald Trump, and me going, holy shit, like, we were about to see World War III in the next couple of years. And they portrayed Trump so elegantly as this freaking right-wing Nazi, big loud mouth guy that just he hated all minorities. He was this person that was just destructive, and you know what, the thing that they don't talk about is once he came into power, he did some of the most amazing things for that country. He brought up the financial GDP of your currency. He helped more African Americans come into education and rise above poverty. He's the only president in the history, I don't know if it's in the history of the United States, but not to start a war and to actually bring soldiers home.
Yes.
Some of the amazing things that I remember sitting there and going, wow, like him going and meeting with Putin and Kim Jong-un and going to China.
Yes.
And creating diplomatic, peace between the West and the communist countries of the world.
Truly setting some great milestones.
One of the greatest. And you say that out loud. If I'm in Australia, right? If I go and I was to stand in a public square and say, Donald Trump is one of the best presidents that the United States has ever seen, people will go, oh, must be a racist. Must be But then it's not about personality. Yes, he can act like a bit of a fool and say some really dumb shit. But
sure,
at
but
the
who
end
don't?
of the day, look at the stats, look at the numbers, look at the what he actually did.
Absolutely.
That's
Absolutely. And what I find really kind of incredible about this, talking about this with you, you're not over here. You're not living this directly underneath what's going on here. Now, granted, y'all do get impacted. Everybody across the world gets impacted with what happens to the U.S. I mean, it just kind of is what it is. But you don't live here, and you are more educated than half the people, more than half the people. You're more educated than 90% of the people out here crying and moaning and groaning when he hit presidency. You are more educated over this topic than so many of the people here that actually are living in it. That to me blows my mind. There's a lack of desire when it comes to educating somebody's self. They want to consider their opinions to be facts, when opinions, although some opinions may be fact-based, an opinion is not a fact. And so I love the way you brought that up. I mean, talking about it, stats speak for himself. Those are facts, but people don't want to believe it. People just don't want to believe it.
Yeah, I mean, you have to, and even like how bullshit. Sorry, excuse my French, but
you're good.
Like your Black Lives Matters protests, like if you actually just dive into the stats, like it literally anything that. I did 2 units of statistical analysis at university, and one of the things that it teaches you is stats are not black and white, but stats are a good way to argue truth. And the one thing that you question stats, that's the first thing, because stats can be biased and stats can be and framed in a way to pursue a political goal, but
absolutely.
But it's also very important to take into account. And you look at like the Black Lives Matters protests, and you look at black on black crime. You look at the amount of people involved in shootings and even like to do with police brutality. You're more likely to be shot as a white American by a police officer than a black American.
Yeah.
It's just stats. So like all these protests and all this political push against this racist agenda that white Americans were somehow suppressing African Americans in terms of gun violence. It was just not true. Like it's just like like you just go you literally read one page of gun violence in America, and you look at the stats on black on black crime, police on reported police violence on African Americans, and you look at it against Caucasian or white Americans. Like the data just wasn't there to suggest that there was any form of racial profiling and it was just like, I remember watching the protests, I'm like, these people are literally I felt like my brain was going to melt out my ear, because it took me like 2 minutes to Google. Like, you think if I'm going to get out in the street, I'm going to go march, and I'm going to go burn down buildings, you think I have a device in my pocket where I can literally Google anything in the world, and I couldn't even Google the stats around why I was marching in the streets. Like, how dumb are you? Like, I'm a brain. And, like, and that was, you know, I don't agree with anything, like, especially the whole George Floyd thing, like, that was horrendous.
Yeah.
You know, but it's an isolated incident. It's
Right.
it's not depictive of a greater issue. And
No.
that's not I think if people live in history and they just keep blaming the past, we can't move into the present, and we furthermore can't move into the future. Like,
True.
we've moved so far away from hunting, it's not funny.
Right. But no, you know, real quick on that idea, you know, the truth of the matter is, and I mean, kind of starting to go back into more of the hunting side of things, but it doesn't matter what the movement is. Everybody that has any kind of gumption about themselves to do something with their life, everybody wants to be a part of a movement that sets history. Everybody wants to be a part of an organization that's doing something that they agree with, that they feel is right. And so, you know, it's like, kind of, like I said, kind of diving back into the realm of hunting. You know, over here, we have several organizations that, quite frankly, were doing pretty decent. Yeah, we were seeing some declines some years, and then we would see some increases in numbers. So I'm going to take like Ducks Unlimited or the National Wild Turkey Federation, things of such. You know, these organizations were doing really good in pressing certain issues within different realms of hunting. So like Ducks Unlimited focusing on duck habitat and things like that, and the National Wild Turkey Federation even getting down into just a local chapter. People wanted to be a part because it was a movement that we agreed with, you know. And you know, the COVID-19 shut a lot of it down. But nevertheless, you know, we did see a spike in our hunting and fishing numbers, I guess, licenses, I guess would be, and permits sold. We did see a spike during the COVID-19, but, you know, it was because, you know, everybody was bored. They needed something to do. Everybody was locked in their house. The only thing they could do was go outside. So, hey, let's go hunting. So we did see a bit of a spike there. And I hated it because I'm a big time guy. I'm big time when it comes to, we need to see the hunting industry grow. And unfortunately, up to the COVID-19, numbers were, in some areas they would increase, but overall they were decreasing. And so I was looking at it, and when I saw the COVID-19 numbers spike, I was like, I can't count that, because everybody was just looking for something to do. But now that the COVID-19, I mean, it's still going on. There's still people freaking out about it. I mean, I go to work with people every day that they choose to wear a mask, and I don't bash them for that, by no means. But I have noticed, and I looking up statistics and things, and permits and licensing sold, we are retaining a substantial amount of these numbers, which is for our case here in America, that's really good for the hunting industry. You know, seeing these numbers retained. You know, so
that's good. That's a good outcome.
Yeah, it really is. It really is, and it's something that I hope continues to continue to grow. I mean, that's you know, I know you said hunting over there, it's kind of underseen, I guess is a good way to put it. And
yeah,
you know, I mean, people typically when they think about traveling, it seems like when they think about traveling to go hunting, they're thinking of Africa being the first one, and I guess the second one would be like New Zealand. I guess would be another big one. And so it might be underseen. And I'm not just trying to flood. I hope you know that I ain't just trying to flood your land over there with hunters. But, you know, I can definitely see a lot of those creatures. I would love to be able to venture out. And, you know, honestly, if I could just get on an airplane, I would probably be willing to do it. But my problem is getting on the airplane. I'm terrified of the idea of getting on an airplane. I've actually turned down 2 trips to Africa because I'm not willing to get on an airplane.
Really?
Oh, man, I don't know what about it, but like, I want to go base jumping. I like bungee jumping. It's fun. Parachuting, all that, great, awesome. Skydiving, great. I don't mind doing it off of like a tall mountain or a tall cliff or whatever. Like, that's fun. That is incredible, an adrenaline rush. But to get on an airplane, I don't know why. What about it? Like, even right now, like I start freaking out. My palms get sweaty. Like, I don't know what it is about it, but it freaks me out.
Wow. Okay. So what you're saying is I'm never going to be able to get you here. You're going to have to come on a boat or something.
Well, I'm not saying you couldn't get me there, but getting on the airplane, in all honesty, I probably would not be sober getting on that airplane.
No. I'd be loading up on Valium, beer, travel calm. Get on the drugs. Get on the gear or whatever you got to do.
I had a friend of mine tell me, he said, man, he goes, if you reject this Africa trip, he goes, I've got connections. I'm gonna go get chloroform, and I'm gonna chloroform you, and I'm gonna get you on that airplane. But yeah, I've turned down 2 trips to go to Africa just because I think as I get older, I'm getting a little bit more calm about it. But especially when I was like in my early 20s, there was no way. Like, not even kinda.
Ain't gonna happen.
Yeah. I was just like, ugh. But I know eventually I'm gonna have to get over my fear, because there's things that I want to go experience. You're talking about that water buffalo. And when you were stuck in the mud and you're looking at that male, and that big male, and you're thinking, it's now or never, it's perfect, it's him or it's me. I want to experience that. And I know in order to experience that, I have to overcome my fear of flying. But it's hard for me to do.
You're not afraid to stand in front of a water buffalo, but you're afraid to go on a plane. That just seems a bit backwards to me. That's crazy.
My old boss, and I won't keep you much longer. We're coming up. We're a little over 2 hours now. But my old boss used to tell me. He said, "John, you'll stick your hand in a hole that you don't know what's in there." I've caught alligators by hand before. Granted, they weren't very big, but granted, I have caught alligators by hand. I swim in the ocean, down there. Freaking, I'll do some off the wall stupid stuff. I'll reach underneath rocks and pull out rattlesnakes. It don't bother me. But he's like, the fact that you won't get on a plane, he goes, out of all the things that you could be scared of, the plane being one of them is astonishing to me. And if he's listening to this, he's about to be laughing, because he'll know exactly. I mean, he used to give me grief about it all the time.
Nah, that's good. Means he's a good bloke.
Yeah.
Oh, good, man. Well, did you have any more questions that you wanted to ask, or anything you wanted to know about Australia? Or?
Oh man, you know what? I think we've covered enough for now. I would, if you're down for it, I'd totally love to have you on the podcast again. That's totally up to you. We enjoyed having you. This has been a lot of fun. Like I said, we're over 2 hours now.
2 hours. That's crazy. It didn't feel
Time
like 2
flies.
hours.
No, it just flew by, man. It just flew by. And that is one thing that I have absolutely loved about doing these podcasts, is I've got to meet some incredible people from across the globe. I've got to meet some incredible people and do these podcasts and just get to hear the way of life for people. And to me, that's just incredible. It's absolutely incredible.
Cool experience, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So like I said, we're about 2 hours and 10 minutes in, so I will let you go. Hey guys, thanks for checking out this week's podcast. Hope y'all stay tuned for the next one coming up. Don't forget to go over to True Blue Broadheads and use the discount code Outdoor Genetics for 20% off. Once again, thank y'all for doing that. We definitely was not expecting that.
That's all good, mate. It's all good. Thank you for taking the time to listen to me rant on about many things, but it was good to actually have this chat. Yeah, I really enjoyed it. Hey, it was good.
Yeah, absolutely. And whenever you're down for a part 2, I ain't even kidding. Let's do a part 2.
I'm in.
That is
you
awesome.
Got me. Let's go.
Awesome. All right, guys. Well, thanks for tuning in. We will catch y'all next time. Until next time, y'all stay safe, stay legal, and have fun. Make sure to send us your pictures and your videos of y'all's harvest, as we love to see them and celebrate those wonderful moments with y'all. All right, guys. We'll be catching y'all on the next podcast of Outdoor Genetics.